In this very brief section, we're going to look at immigration as a cause of the Industrial Revolution. Between 1870 and 1900, over 12 million people came to the United States. In the first decade of the 20th century, the annual number reached as high as 9 million people per year. All of these people wanted to get wealthy. They had heard of America as the land of rags or riches. They were familiar with Andrew Carnegie and maybe the Horatio Alger stories, and so they flooded into the country. And this is going to be important for the Industrial Revolution because they're going to be the labor for the factories, which of course was a key ingredient. As shown in this graph, it's important to note that not only were the numbers of immigrants large, but they were coming from a different part of Europe. Prior to the 1890, the majority of immigrants had come from Northern and Western Europe. But beginning in 1890 and peaking in the first decade of the 20th century, the majority came from Southern and Eastern Europe. And this is going to be very important for the Industrial Revolution. It's important in the Industrial Revolution because they faced discrimination. They were not like the people that were already here, the waspish types that were already here. They were Greek Orthodox or Jewish or Muslim. They were dark-skinned and they spoke like with a Cyrillic alphabet, many of them. Just some figures. In 1870, there were 250,000 Jews living in the United States. By 1920, there were 3.5 million. From 1850 to 1900, the number of Catholics rose from 1.6 million to 12 million. I could go on, but these people all faced discrimination. Given the discrimination they faced and their different culture and language, they did not easily assimilate like earlier immigrants. With much of the western frontier closing, the new arrivals tended to clump together in ethnic enclaves in the large eastern cities of their arrival. And they'd form, the little Italies or the little Russia, where, everything they needed was in their own community. There'd be in Little Russia a Russian market or Russian doctor, everybody spoke Russian and so forth. This is significant. It's important for the Industrial Revolution because it meant that the large numbers of workers were right nearby, a surplus of workers that made them cheap labor. The factories are right nearby, and they're all these new people coming in and staying right near the factories, and so this is going to be an easily exploitable labor force, especially in an age of laissez-faire. As a recognition of America's role in accepting the poor immigrants, France built and gave the United States the famous Statue of Liberty. It was dedicated on a small island in New York Harbor on October 28, 1886, as a gift from the people of France. The copper neoclassical statue had a quote on its pedestal: "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free." Given the influx of immigrants, the U.S. employed a processing center on another nearby island in New York Harbor, Ellis Island. The U.S. essentially had an open immigration policy, and the island was not so much to, exclude new arrivals as to ensure that there were no radicals or that people were, sick people were admitted. Many of the people had to be quarantined on Ellis Island. Ellis Island opened in 1892, and almost 500,000 immigrants passed through its gates in its first year alone. They would leave Ellis Island and go into New York City, and they'd clump together in their ethnic communities. And like I say, this then facilitated them as a labor force for the factories that were right nearby. This concludes the brief section on immigration as a cause of the Industrial Revolution.